So today we got Christopher O'Donnell, the founder and CEO of Day.ai. Christopher was CPO of HubSpot for 10 years, and now he's building Day.ai, and he's about to spill some serious tea on the entire industry. We'll talk about Cursor's pricing backlash and why AI tools are bleeding money, and Christopher's ergonomic pricing that customers actually love. Maybe some juicy stuff about Boston tech gossip too, who knows? Christopher is betting that AI will make business more human. But first, why the industry is full of it. Christopher, let's get paid. Christopher, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Big fan since we got introduced through Pat. I love what you guys are doing with Day. It's a long time coming. I'm a little surprised it took you this long, but better late than never. Thanks for coming to the podcast.
Oh man, my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this very much. Yeah, and overdue, but here we are finally.
That's right. That's right. All right. So tell me, how do you build a new system of record in the era of AI? What goes, what's in, what's out? How you don't suck as much as Salesforce? Given the whole thing from the top.
Yeah, well, a total piece of cake, right? You just take everything that ever happened and you build an entire system of record with all of the provenance and the pointers and the reasoning and everything. We started 2 years ago, and the interesting part was we kind of had the idea that we still have today, but you couldn't really do it. So for the first year, it was a lot of laying the foundation, and then we did this, meeting recorder feature set, which is really useful. But we were kind of prepping, and then about a year ago, about 13 months ago, actually, in June of 24, it became possible. And the principle is not that complicated. It's like, all right, you need to get all of the emails, all of the Slacks, all of the meeting transcripts, everything you can, and then you've got to start processing it and tying down, into an entity model of some kind, how it all fits together and
Right.
what it all means. The part that's really different is that it doesn't really work. You can see pretty quickly it doesn't really work to do it in a more relational kind of model where you have, contacts and opportunities and this and that. So we decided pretty early on, I give Eric Munson, our founding engineer, a lot of credit for this, to do more of a graph. And so the short answer is, piece of cake. You take all the natural language, you feed it through the right models with the right prompts, and then you get back, additions to this graph that you can then present however you want. You can present it in a table or a Kanban board. You can present it, importantly, to an LLM in a way that an LLM wants. And that's probably, under the covers, the biggest difference here is that, every CRM, you can have some experience where through MCP or whatever, you can chat with it and it'll find records and build a context window and answer questions and stuff like that. For us, what we give the LLM to work with is like very beautifully written, detailed natural language about all of this stuff and how it relates to each other. So it's not just like, here's the opportunity you're talking about, here are the contacts associated. It's, here's the opportunity you're talking about, and this person is a lawyer who doesn't want to do the deal. And this person is a champion, but they don't really have a lot of sway internally. This person is the real decision maker and they're interested, but you really got to sell them on this core value proposition. Like that's the starting point for the LLM. And so the answers can be like insanely good, as opposed to just taking a database table and showing it to an LLM and asking it questions. It's the shortest answer I could give you.
Yeah, this is incredible. So, like, do you have to do that every time you query the CRM? So every time you want to do a prep for a meeting, every time you want to see how your deal is going, every time you want to see your pipeline, you have to like create that amount of information and feed it through the LLM. I mean, that seems massively expensive.
That's all pre-processed.
Okay, so tell me more. What is it pre-processing?
Again, total piece of cake. You just need to, bind to Google Calendar, PubSub, and Gmail. It's like I don't mind talking about this stuff. It's like in terms of trade secrets, because if somebody's like, "Oh, I see what they're doing. I'm going to go bind to the Gmail API," I'm like, "Good luck. Have fun. Like
Yeah.
seriously, I'm here for a hug when you need it." You know what I mean? It's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. But so there's a fire hose of this incoming data, and you got to pre-process
Yeah.
it. You got to look at a meeting recording and decide, is this meeting recording, does this mean that an opportunity should exist on this pipeline over here? Like, what is this pipeline? This has never existed in
Yeah.
CRM. Like, oh, but like, what's this pipeline? Is this sales? Is this like, a podcast booking pipeline? Is this an investor relations doing your next round pipeline? Okay, now what happened in the meeting? Like, all of that going back and forth and figuring out where this stuff should all fit is tricky.
Yeah.
It's super tricky. And it's this fire hose of incoming data. But you massage it and you get it to a point where then you pre-process it into that graph, and then accessing it is like literally instant. You know what I mean? Because it's all
Yeah.
sitting there, and then you're doing inference on sort of the synthesis of all of that information.
Got it. Got it. All right. So now that you laid out how the magic happens, so that still feels expensive. So how do you translate that into customer value, and how do you get paid from there? I
Yeah.
know you just came out with this ergonomic pricing concept, so we would love if you can explain that to our listeners.
So the first part is it costly to prepare this data? Yeah. Our thesis is that we should not optimize for COGS. We should not optimize for low cost of processing this stuff at a time when the difference between the state of the art frontier model that's going to be expensive and the best open source alternative, or the best, low cost alternative, when that difference is as big as it is today, it's not the time to optimize for that. Now, of course, we're also not idiots. You know what I mean? And at this point, the very inexpensive model, something like Claude Haiku, Claude Haiku smokes. So there's a lot that you can do at very low cost. And the open source stuff is starting to really catch up. Some of the Llama 4 stuff, for example, is like good enough in a lot of cases to be, a sonnet swap in. So you can already see how the costs are going to kind of smooth out over time, and
Yeah.
capacity too, because the frontier models, obviously, you have capacity restraints. So we're not super worried about cost at the moment, even though we're like
Mhm.
insanely cheap. And AWS has been an incredible partner with us on all this, and the other vendors as well, Anthropic, principal, amongst those. Now, you do have to have, in a pricing model, you have to have some relationship between the cost of what you're doing and the value collected. You have to
Yeah.
have some relationship. It can't be completely disconnected to the point where somebody paying you $30 a month is like you doing unlimited Opus 4, 45-minute, writing a novel in the background 10 times a day. Like, obviously, that.
100%. You leave that to Dharmesh, right? Maybe you connect into his marketplace and you can be unlimited usage of that shit. Right? That right?
I don't know. I don't know actually know what he's doing. I don't know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
you can consume as much credits as you want if you are in the marketplace. But let's get back to your story. So like, okay, so you got your insanely cheap price. You got this big, bill that you paid to Anthropic. Walk me through how you reconcile the economics there.
Yeah, I think I mean, first of all, just in this conversation, I think the big thing that we're learning, and that, we'll come back to a number of times, is transparency. Because what you're seeing in the market right now, I think the big headline right now is that lack of transparency turns into a lack of trust. And for us, that's the one part of this I'm really worried about, because where we are today, I'm excited about our starting point, and customers really like it. We're out in market, we're charging for the product, we're starting to kind of ramp up, and it feels really good. And we can talk about our decisions, but the biggest thing is, if things aren't transparent as you iterate and change toward perfect and your ultimate solution, anybody who reads the subreddits from any of the coding apps or the foundation models or anything will learn very quickly that transparency and trust are pretty huge. And I do think ultimately that the best product is going to win. I think switching costs have gone basically to zero in this world, and I'm going to use the best coding environment that exists basically any particular day. If something came out tomorrow that was better than what I'm using, I'm going to use that tomorrow. I'm going to know about it. by 8 a.m. and I'm going to be using it by 8:07. So that's kind of the overture on this. Now, how do we like try to have some connection between the cost of what we're doing and the price? We went down a lot of different roads. One is to do it just sort of by user with various different limits and tiering, and all the rest of that. And we did kind of a flavor of that that I think long term is going to work out really, really well, where I, as a user, can actually have instances of a paid SKU, each with their own permissions, each with their own model instructions and kind of purpose and name and disk personality. Like we have some fun stuff in this kind of concept. So that's where, yeah, it's cool. You can tell it like, I want you to be like really direct and analytical with me always. And by the way, your first name is now this. And it'll be like, yes,
Right, right.
100%. And it'll update itself.
Something German, perhaps? Yeah, yeah, something like, Klaus. Your name is Klaus.
Yeah. No, I do. My assistant has a whole backstory, and she was the child of a Swiss watchmaker and is like super analytical, and you can have a lot of fun with it. But that's the idea, is this idea of an assistant, which also I think works really well in the world of async. So this is a whole other thing that we can talk about, but this is what I think is about to happen that the world doesn't universally see coming, that is about to
Mm,
happen, which is we hoist all of these workflows up into the cloud. And instead of sitting at a computer interacting with these admittedly like totally magical conversations in ChatGPT, Claude Web, whatever it is, this stuff's going to start happening automatically. I woke up this
mm.
morning with an email from my assistant, Chloe, and she had watched all of the meeting recordings from the previous day and came in and said, here are the issues. Here are the top 5 things you got to worry about. And, here are the product positioning lines that landed. Like, I want to know every day. I want to know, okay, what did we say on the phone that a prospect was like, ooh, I love that. I have them right here. I was just looking at them with Daphne. It's like Daphne said this thing, it really landed. Peachy said this thing, really landed. And so I want all those. I want all of the blocking bugs. It emailed me and said, dude, Safari is in rough shape. And so I'm like, oh boy. And so I go look and I'm like, okay, I can see there's a real gap here in terms of Safari support for this. And we all use Chrome. And so, whatever. So that type of async work happening on your behalf is unbelievable and a major breakthrough. And not a ton of people are doing it, right? Like not a ton of people have some agent in the cloud that is like doing all this work for them throughout the day. So, this fits that really well too. So there's an element of it that is ergonomic to fit the way somebody wants to buy today that will remain
Yeah.
ergonomic when they start to see how this thing's going to work in the future.
I love that. So, but getting back to the economics of the business. So right now you have this magical product that is just ingesting enormous amounts of information about you and what you're doing with your business and now eventually your team, et cetera, synthesizing it and then giving it to you in ways that you can act on. But that's expensive compared to your very cheap and cherry price that you're charging to your customers. So so walk me through, you can't make this up in volume, right? Like so and the models will eventually get better. Like do you see that O5 just beat, just came ahead in the Math Olympiad. So like these things are not gonna get any cheaper, at least for a little bit. So
Well,
walk me through, asymptotically, where do you go?
right. The most advanced frontier model is going to remain expensive. However, the models
Yep.
that follow on that, so if we build an entire system and we build it on, let's say, 3.5 Sonnet, which, wide swaths of what we did were built on 3.5 Sonnet.
Yep.
And it's slow and it's limited capacity. But man, is it good. It is really, really good.
Mm.
So then you fast forward and say, well, what are we doing now? First of all, we can use Sonnet 4, which is faster and cheaper for those same workloads. And we can mix in Llama 4, which has a bit of a different flavor to it. But, geez, for a lot of this, works really, really well. Then you have,
Got it.
Haiku, which in for some tasks has gotten the newest Haiku is going to be just as good or better than the 3.5 sonnet that we built the thing on. So there's kind of a laddering that happens with it that is encouraging. And to the specifics of this, and you'll appreciate this, the ongoing COGS are meaningful, but easy to cover with any kind of CRM-ish licensing structure. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
average
yeah,
sales rep has $5,000 a year worth of software on a sort of
yeah.
traditional stack with products, you and I, maybe
Oh, way
do it.
way more, way more. 5,000 will be nice. Like, it's probably double that easy.
I read a thing, it was like 5,000, including like CRM and, email and all that, but I'm sure if you start to include video conferencing and, all the sales acceleration, yeah, maybe it's more. So, if we have a $75 a month kind of ASP average per user and we're sort of in there, ongoing, it's that's fine. The question for us is, okay, we get a new sign up and now we got to go through maybe 10 years of Gmail history.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
And so for us, and this is a really interesting topic internally because we want to invite everybody in the world in to the product. I mean, who wouldn't? Um, but it's, real money. It's several months worth of a user paying for the product just for them to see the product. And of course, we don't want
Yeah.
to do a big, heavy demo and then annual decision. That's boy, I mean, you could make a case for it. It's just so far from our DNA that I just don't think you could get me and Peachy to do it. So we have to be clever about, what it is. Like one of the things that we might do here is hard onboarding because there are people who are kind of tire kicking around CRM. And then there are people
Yeah.
who are like really in dire need of a serious system that is going to seriously do the, demanding things they want to do at their business. You could have an onboarding that says, listen, if you are demonstrating through this interactive setup of this thing that you really need this and you've done your homework, you know what? We'll process your data. We'll take care of it and just trust that you'll be high LTV long term.
Yeah.
That's kind of the path that we're going down right now, but we'll live and learn. But we want to be kind of clever about that.
Yeah, no, we'll revisit in a couple of months then and figure out if that worked.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
You can still get tire kickers in that onboarding, and you're out that money. You know what I mean? Like what went out to Claude, you're not gonna get back. So you're not fit to figure out like what to do about it. Walk me through this. Changing topics a little bit. Like why is transparency so important? So what's a disaster that's happening right now with the IDEs and the sort of like Reddit just like losing its mind over this thing, and what are you learning from that, and what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. Um, I mean, Cursor is the obvious one right now.
Say more. Say more. What's going on? Just fill us in. What is your perspective on the whole thing?
The short story on the Cursor stuff is they've grown like crazy. There's definitely a loss leader aspect to this. I'll try to keep it high level. There's a loss leader aspect to it. There has to be some capacity constraint aspect to this as well, where they just
Yeah.
can't get the inference to serve this many people on, whatever the particular models are that these people want to use. Um,
Right.
and
Right.
I'm no expert on sort of the fundraising and the sort of capital strategy on all of this, but at some point, you got to kind of start to show discipline and margin expansion, a path to profitability and all the rest of that. I can't speak to whether they're at that point or have that pressure, but their scale is massive, their revenue is massive, and they're very far from profitable, meaning at that scale, they are burning an insane amount of money. Um, and
Right.
so, so what do you do? You're going to be iterating on pricing and packaging very quickly in a context also of, day to day, you're going to be running into different issues in terms of what inference you can get. And so, it's very understandable that they would, for example, start, enforcing tool call limits in a thread. And, maybe that's a new aspect of the pricing. I don't think they're necessarily doing it. I'm not aware of anything where I've read the terms of service and then, seen what they're doing and said, "Oh, they're being dishonest here." Like, it's not at that level. And that's kind of the point, is that, the details matter and the trust matters, and communicating to users about what's happening matters. If you're going to start
Mm,
doing some metered billing, giving customers a way to opt out in settings is probably not enough. You got to really kind of put your arms around those people and say,
mhm,
with some humility and some transparency, like, listen, here's where we are. You know what I mean? Here's where we are. We want you to keep ripping Sonnet 4 in sidebars and your autocomplete and all the rest of it. System's getting really hot. We're trying to figure it out. Moving to this model that we're introducing, we think is going to be a really good value delivered to you, offer transparency, and allow us to build the kind of business that we need to build to continue to develop this product for you. You know what I mean? Like, some sort of dialogue like that, I think, goes a long way, especially if you're going to be, like, no fault of theirs, you're going to be in a situation where you're iterating wildly to try to find the thing that's going to work for investors and the company and customers and everything like that. So I would have kind of
but
pulled.
wait. Well, but what happened instead? So finish the swing on like what they did, because that
Yeah,
is what you wish they had
I
done,
became
but that's not
picking
what
on
they
them.
did. What did
They're
they do?
getting picked on so much.
Come on, just give it
No,
to
no, no. I
me
know, I
straight.
know,
Just
I
what
know,
happened.
I
Just the
know, I know.
facts.
Well, so people, listen, TLDR, people got a lot of unexpected charges during a period where the service delivery wasn't necessarily spectacular to begin with, in a period where
Mm,
there was a competitor, Claude Code, that was really coming onto the field, ready to
yep.
win and ready to play. So it was
Right.
kind of a perfect storm. And, you go on Reddit and you see these people that have screenshots of their bill. They're like, all of a sudden, I'm paying $20 a month. Now I'm getting $100 a day invoice. Like, what? What is going on? And then, I try to downgrade, or I try to switch my plan. Oh, I can't switch my plan. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And the problem, to answer your question, like, the problem is really that exhaust being in public and being this negative word of mouth. You know what I mean? I
Mm,
think that's a huge problem. I think your best marketing channel is going to be word of mouth and trust with customers. It's the only infinite viral acquisition mechanism. It's the only one.
100%.
Do you know what I
But
mean?
look, they're all in the same boat. So like you go okay, so you leave course and go where? Windsurf? No. Where are you gonna go? Claude Code is not, it's coming on strong, but they all switch it up on you too. So where do you go?
They might. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, Claude Code is the obvious answer. Claude Code is way better right now. And again, these things change by the week, and so it's, I'm will own that I switch between these in any given week. I had a buddy text me say, "Oh, I'm about to do an annual for my whole team on Cursor," and I'm like, "Dude, why? No, it's like, he's doing it because I sat him down to be like, you need to do an annual on Cursor for your team. You know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
I reserve the right to change my mind on a daily basis. Today, Claude Code is like absurdly better, for reasons that are pretty interesting to discuss, including, I think, that Claude Code is writing a lot of Claude Code, and Opus 4 is, you know, heavenly. It is like cosmically powerful. And Sonnet 4 for most folks is, the best model. So, like, the combination of those things, is putting them, way ahead. Then Cursor shows up and they're like, well, but we're going to do async. We got background agents. Okay, well, if that works and rips, that's game changing. Do you know what I mean? Now, if they're going to
Mm,
give you the harness to
yeah.
do that, but you can't really, right? Because you're not really spinning up like a whole container. You don't really have MCP working, in that environment and that kind of thing. And so it's this racehorse thing for sure. But there is, if you get frustrated, there are alternatives to this stuff. I expect it to be the same with us. Like, I do think that we're, you know, novel today. And there isn't something, you can't go down the street and get like a CRM that sucks this all in and gives you a threaded assistant chat interface.
We'll get to that in a minute. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's stick with the Claude Code and the Cursor thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's no alternative right now. So Claude Code is much better. Cursor cannot find its way out of the predicament of like actually using Claude to power these applications. How does this get resolved in some degree? Like what you don't want to be waking up every new week to a new IDE. Like that shit is a waste of time too. So what is the settlement on this? Is GitHub coming to the rescue with with a new coding environment? Like what's or with Microsoft just packaging it all in and just giving it away for free like they did with Teams? Like what's your take? What's the
It,
universe like?
it may be that Claude Code extends its lead. I mean, if I were a betting person, that's where I would bet. I do think that the rate of change is, faster and accelerating faster than the rate of change of these other things. I do think the community will get together and have some really, really good stuff. I think more interesting in a lot of ways is what Mike Krieger calls the overhang, which is, so there's some capability limit of an environment, by which I mean, a harness and the models within it. So Claude Code plus the Anthropic models, like that environment versus, let's say, Cursor with whatever models you're using. You can pretty easily convince yourself that there is a huge delta between the absolute capability limit of that environment and what anybody on earth is doing with it. And Krieger calls that overhang. I don't know that he ever said this, but I would imagine that there are things that Claude Code is capable of that the Claude Code team is only starting to discover. And that's probably true of these other things too. So that's the other lens on it, Manny, is like no matter
Got it, got it, got it.
what you're using, there's a huge gap in terms of what you could do. Like, okay, I'm using Claude Code. I have this great rig locally and everything like that. But I could be in a Docker container async using the SDK, running Playwright MCPs and, doing browser tests and all the rest of that. I can't find anybody who's doing all of that, even though there's nothing keeping any of us from doing all of that. So
Yeah,
I think there's a huge gap even between what's capable and what people are doing.
got it. So it's gonna take us some time for us to actually really find the limits of what is possible right now, even at this current state of technology.
Right, and that's the humility of, of course, we're moving to the best one each day. Of course, the best one is noticeably better than the others, but all of them are capable of much more than any of us are doing.
Got it. All right, let's switch over to the nobody can do absorb all your email and have multi-threaded chats inside of your CRM. Why is that? Like, why can't there's a lot of people who have an idea. This thing's kind of happen in zeitgeist where the same idea that happened to you happened to 20 other really smart entrepreneurs, and they're all sort of gone in for it. Where does this go? Like, somebody will figure out the same way in which you absorb all these emails and all these calls and all these calendar appointments and make it super simple for somebody to run their business. How you find your lane and how does everybody win, or does it become a dog eat dog kind of environment?
There's nothing stopping anybody from doing this. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing this. It also sucks. It's really hard, dude. It's a lot of like brain damage to try to understand how this is going to all fit together. And ironically, I think that coming from any kind of CRM background, you're almost at a disadvantage in a lot of ways because it is so clearly not the way to think about it that you now have a learning curve that you kind of have to go back down. That first year for us, we spent a lot of time forgetting everything that we knew about CRM and just going way back to the beginning. And people are talking about like forecasting, and we could be like, oh yeah, let me tell you about forecasting in CRM. Let me tell you about forecasting, and just start and be like, no, talk to me about forecasting. Because the answer down the road is going to be incredibly different. And if you do the sort of product manager thing of like, what are you really trying to accomplish? Or, the my
Yeah,
touchy
yeah,
feely thing of, what are the unmet emotional needs that people are looking for this product to fill, and how do we actually give them a sense of emotional security and worth and belonging in the workplace. Like, I do believe that that's the layer you need to be operating at with this software. You get all the way down to that on something like sales forecasting, and then start building back up in today's world, and you have an unrecognizable answer. And so that's a hazard too. Somebody comes along and they go, okay, we're going to grab all the Gmail. We're going to do automated ops. We're going to do, meeting recordings. We're going to do all this stuff. And you go, great. And then they're like, and now we're going to do, forecasting. And it's going to look just like Clary, and it's like, there it goes. There it is. Game over. Like, it's 100% not the right answer. Like, the right answer is this completely new modern thing. So the way I look at it is like there's nothing stopping anybody, just the way that there's nothing stopping, an 18-leg DraftKings parlay bet from filling. There's nothing keeping it from happening. But like
Right, right,
18
right.
legs on a parlay is like hard.
Yeah. Yeah, so I agree with you that that is hard, but you also have the other component. So you have your neighbor across town that is building, a similar value proposition, but coming at it from like the customer account, the customer retention, customer success point of view, right? Like you have your customer, you need to drive expansion, you need to drive revenue retention. You're coming at it from the pure CRM point of view. Do they find lanes around the job descriptions? Just talk about you too, and even throw in, the adios, the coffees, and the whatevers, or do you find lanes around ergonomics, if you would? Like, I'm easy to use for a chatty person, whereas I'm easier to use for a more like rows and columns kind of person. Like, where does this go so that everybody has a piece of the pie, or it's just competition and that's it?
Well, I mean, first of all, this is an infinite market. This is an infinite market. Like, one of these company, Salesforce can be a $200-300 billion market cap company. And, HubSpot can come along and be a 30, 40, $50 billion market cap company without particularly taking away from the success of Salesforce. And if I go downtown to Cafe Nero and I grab 20 adults who are professionals who feed their families doing information work, and I ask them what a CRM is, you and I might think that 20 out of 20 are going to be like, a CRM is the following. You know, the truth is 3 out of 20 are going to tell me what a CRM is. Like, working in this industry, we assume that it is, a completely captured market, and it's a 60-70 billion dollar TAM and all the rest of it. That is horseshit. Like, this is basically infinite. Um, and it's a little bit like being on a fishing trip with your buddies. You want to catch a bigger fish than your buddy catches, and that's totally healthy. But like, ruminating that your buddy's going to stay up and catch all the fish in the ocean is like psychotic. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen, and that's why I'm really good friends with the all the people that I worked with for years, and I talk to them all the time. We don't really talk about work, right? But we talk about family, we talk about this stuff, and I
Right,
think there was
right, right.
some anxiety, like, "Dude, do you really have to go do this and stuff?" I'm like, "Listen, everybody's gonna be fine. Like, everybody's gonna be good. There's an infinite market here. Everybody's gonna feed their families, and, like, game on. Let's go have some fun." You know what I mean? You can have more than one team in a basketball league. Um, so that's
I
one.
agree with you. I agree. I agree and disagree with you because, like, I have Hubspot right now. I sit in front of Hubspot and it just sucks. It's you can tell that shit was built 20 years ago. And like there is stuff like, dude, like cars are about to fucking drive themselves, and I still. Still Hubspot cannot recognize an email that went through, or a meeting that went through, or a conversation that happened that should advance the deal forward, should put some numbers on the fucking deal, as opposed to me having to enter the thing. Like, come on now. And and they're not doing anything about it. I'm supposed to turn on some automation. I'm like, no, just recognize it. What the fuck? Like, it's software. So like, you building a product that is intuitive to and uses all the technology available to us to deliver the goods. It's just a natural, consequence of somebody else not doing it. You know what I mean? If they were killed it, you wouldn't have this idea. But they didn't kill it when the stuff exists and is widely available to all of us. Don't you agree?
I think there's a scenario where, frankly, there's a scenario where it won't be too terribly long before the AI just kills us all. First of all,
All right.
no,
So if you
this is
back up
these are
from
the
there,
scenarios. These
we're
are the
all
scenarios. Like, let's break it down. You have the scenario where like humanity is just erased, and there's the Daniel Catalio stuff and all the rest of it. This is not like some
Mhm.
wild science fiction outcome. This is a very possible outcome. Then you have an
Yeah,
outcome which
there's
is
a
that doesn't
probability number
happen.
against it. Yeah,
Yeah, but that
100%.
doesn't happen. But all of like subscription software is definitely gone. That could
Yeah.
happen. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Then you
yeah.
have a
That
scenario.
is definitely happening. Like, I'm not even doubting that. It's
Like, what
100%
are we
happening.
talking about? Then just hang out and have a good time, you know what I mean? And build stuff and serve customers and, try to help them have an amazing day at work, and we got to accept what the universe is gonna bring and try to use this stuff in the meantime to do something kind of positive for the world. You know what I mean? Like, and for me, if I spend my day to day and I'm building stuff that helps people remember to do things they promised somebody else, or can pay attention in a meeting, or can create like a killer internal doc about a bunch of things they're working on, or whatever, I'm going to have a great time doing it. And customers are going to be blown away, and it's going to be tons of fun. And we'll keep working toward building a massive company. You know, there's this I think the scenario in which, like, there's one winner in the software category, it's also possible, right? It's possible, and if that's the case, then, there will be one winner, and these incumbents will be gone by 2028. They will not be public companies. And that's not crazy. And I'm not saying like it'll be us. I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody starts a company in 90 days with some new frontier model, with some new mindset, and they just stick the landing and they get it all perfect. That could totally happen. But I do think in that slice, there's one winner and everybody else is gone. That's reasonably likely. That's 20%, 30% of the whole thing, I think, is, in terms of likelihood.
I think you did a great job in parsing out in a very good conceptual first principles framework, even though I don't like that word anymore because everybody uses it, but in a good probabilistic framework of all the potential outcomes and how, the probability of things being status quo, you being a great product, serving great people who look for a great product is totally in the bag, and it will be in the bag 5 years from now, and it will be a bigger bag 5 years from now because a lot more people will come into the fold, with a solution like yours. So just to close real quick, Christopher, because you mentioned something that really captured my attention when we caught up last time, which is that you're playing with the universe on this one. So tell me what that is and why it works now and you're in this stage of your life.
You mean trying to kind of go with the flow and kind of take the cues?
Yeah. Yeah, the whole concept of how the universe is conspiring on your behalf.
Yeah, I think the philosopher Rumi had that quote that, act as
Yeah.
though the universe is conspiring in your favor. Why not? I mean, why not? Why not kind of proceed with each day with the assumption that things will go well if you pay attention to what is trying to happen? Like, that's my perspective on it, is that the universe is trying to do something, and I mostly need to just let that happen. And a lot of times that means keeping my mouth shut, frankly. A lot of times that means just let it happen. Like, why you gotta fight everything? You know what I mean? Why you gotta have an opinion about everything? Maybe I don't have an opinion. Maybe I need to sleep. Like, that's one thing that we do a lot at work, is like we'll stop a conversation when we have reached the limit of our thoughts on that topic, and then we'll wait. And the universe will bring you more information, and by the way, your brain will work in the background, and,
Yeah.
then we'll come back together and be like, "Okay, okay, okay. So that thing you were saying, I didn't get it, and I think that's the whole ball game." I had one of those this morning. I'm like, "By the way, 2 weeks ago when you were, like, kinda pushing on this thing, I see it now, and I think that's, like, the only topic we should focus on." So some of it is like, I heard somebody say once, like, slow down to let God catch up. However one wants to interpret that. And I think that's really, important. And then the other piece is like, God will move mountains, but bring a shovel, so
I love that. I
and
love
that's the
that.
other part. It's like we do these things not because they're easy, but because we thought they would be easy, It's like the universe is like,
Yeah.
you need to build this AI native CRM that's all automatic and all that. And I'm like, that sounds great. That's awesome. And then, I get it, this is
That's
hard,
amazing.
but it's a lot of fun, man. Beats working.
100%. All right, brother. Good to see you again, Christopher. It was awesome to have this conversation with you.